Welcome back, guys, to another movie review. Today, we are talking about The Batman. The Batman is directed by Matt Reeves. You might recognize him from some films like Let Me In, Cloverfield, or one of the two out of the three Planet of the Apes, modern Planet of the Apes films that came out in the recent years. This film has a stacked cast, and it has my boy, Robert Pattinson, also Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, Andy Serkis, Colin Farrell, and many more. This is the newest adaptation of Batman coming to the big screen from Matt Reeves, and his take is very much so focused on a detective story. When the news first dropped and I first saw that initial trailer, I was definitely excited, but it was kind of a measured, tepid excitement. I'm definitely a big fan of The Dark Knight, so I was excited to see what we had in store. I was not worried due to the director's capabilities. I think that Matt Reeves is more than a capable director, and especially not due to the casting of Robert Pattinson as Batman, because he has more than proven himself in recent years with some amazing roles in films like The King and Tenet, of course, but also Good Time and The Lighthouse, where he was fantastic, and many, many more. Superhero films, for lack of a better word, are fatiguing me, and they don't wait anymore to do new adaptations or new reinterpretations as new versions of the same character come out again and again and again, and also we're getting 3 or 4 superhero films probably per year now, and I just didn't know if this Batman film was necessary. However, walking out of the movie theater, I can definitely say that I enjoyed this movie and this rendition of Batman. The movie feels kind of like a hard-boiled detective story, focusing on the early days of Batman. The cinematography and production design are fantastic, but they're also grimy and dirty. Gotham is always cloudy and almost always raining, and most of this film is really dark, and it's a bit like a PG-13 7, except instead of Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, we have Robert Pattinson dressed as a bat and Jeffrey Wright playing James Gordon. So he is very much so like in Seven, following a serial killer who is on the loose and following the clues, looking for clues, and throughout this discovery process, he's also kind of discovering himself. Robert Pattinson's interpretation of Batman is amazing. However, his Bruce Wayne is someone that we don't really see much of, and when we do, he is a sad, grunge, Kurt Cobain-esque Bruce Wayne who clearly is struggling with some inner demons. The whole cast is fantastic, they all do a great job, and the villains are really quite strong here. Colin Farrell is entirely unrecognizable in this role as this lower level mob boss, and also this other kind of comic book character that I won't directly reference just in case you aren't aware. The main villain, which I won't spoil who it is in terms of an actor and who I guess the character is either if you haven't seen anything from the movie, he is also great here and it's very well executed. Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman worked really well with her level of sensuality and her feminine kind of strong girl power. But I was actually expecting a much larger role from her in the movie, and I felt like actually it was much smaller. I felt like she was a big part of that press tour and everything, and I guess I figured she was going to play even a larger role in the movie. A very small issue with the film, for me personally, was just, I guess, maybe a little bit of the pacing. The first third of the film, I was locked in. The middle lulled a little bit, slowed down quite a bit. The pacing did slow, and I'm not saying that it wasn't delivered, but I felt like maybe this 3-hour film could have been cut down a little bit, but the last third definitely picks back up and had me right back locked into the story. Beyond the pacing, there was a substantial amount of exposition. I know that exposition is not in and of itself bad, and technically almost every film uses exposition in some way, shape, or form. However, many characters here would spit out fat paragraphs explaining something or explaining the history behind something that happened in the city and so on. I understand that the vibe of this film was kind of like an old school noir film or detective novel, even giving us internal mental monologues from Bruce or Batman and how he feels about the crime in Gotham, but I personally would have appreciated a little bit more showing and a little less telling. Nonetheless, this Batman really does show us another aspect of the Batman character that we haven't really seen in film format before, showing us how he's still really trying to figure things out, as this is his second year of being the Batman. The narrative was really grounded in a way that it calls out our highly digitalized world and how social media can affect people negatively, creating isolated, lonely, and deeply confused people that can create a recipe for disaster. As far as the action goes, you still get some really gratifying scenes of the Batman beating people up with his fists late at night in Gotham, as well as an amazing sequence and a Batmobile chase that is fantastic, and I would highly recommend seeing it on the biggest screen with the best sound system that you can see it on. However, this is not the same kind of film that The Dark Knight is. The Batman cares much more about the darker realities of our world and how that is reflected in Gotham, and how this Batman is still yet honing in his detective superhero skills while trying to help this really dark rendition of a lost city. I am glad that it's something unique to add to the canon as opposed to being blockbuster cannon fodder. At the end of the day, I had a really good time, and I would recommend The Batman to any Batman fan, I'm sure any comic book fan, any film noir fan, and I'd say probably most cinephiles are going to have a really dark, grimy, dirty time at the cinema. I will give The Batman an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I do sincerely appreciate all of you who do check out my videos and watch them. And if you make it to the end of the video, let me know, what is your favorite rendition of Batman on the big screen? As always, if you enjoyed it, if you enjoy my videos, put a like, subscribe, keep yourself up to date, and share it with your circle. As always, I will see you guys in the next review. Gotham was like an old school noir film.